right, everybody. Craig, I am so excited to have you on my show this time. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah. Hi, Jill. How are you?
Good, good. So I know not a lot of people may know about you and how you got into the ortho industry. So I'm wondering if you would take a moment and just tell us your history. Tell us how you got here.
Absolutely. It all started back in the 1800s. No, I'm just kidding. So where this really began was in, I want to say around 2017, 2018, I went to the dentist and I needed some cavities filled. I wasn't the best brusher, this and that. And I became friends with the dentist and she said, I think you should go get some orthodontic treatment. And I'm like, my teeth are fine. That's what we all hear, right? Fine. If someone says their teeth are fine, how fine are they? Anyway, so I went in, she referred me to Cater Galante Orthodontics in Grass
Mhm.
Valley, California.
Yes.
And little did I know that was going to change my life. I went in and got some clear aligners, got to meet Dr. Donna Galante. And then about 6 months into my treatment, they were joking one day. They're like, we're looking for more assistants if you ever need anyone. And I'm like, oh, do I count? Just a total spontaneous idea. And she's, yeah, I can train you. I just need someone with a personality. You have that. At the time, I was running restaurants and doing the HR there and everything. And I'm like, okay. So I thought about it. We get onboarded, and within 6 months, I'm full time under Dr. Donna Galante and Paul Cater. So I was became the aligner guru. I learned so much under her. As we know, she's if you don't know her, she's one of the top tier Invisalign providers in the world.
Yes. Yeah.
And became a really strong assistant for her, got to know everything down from clean checks to attachments to lab work. I did everything.
Yep.
And then after working with her for a handful of years, I was like, where's the room to grow here?
Mhm.
I think me being a young person, it was the excellent door for entrepreneurship. So I took it
Yes.
from there. She said, you need to start your own business. Her and her husband, Dr. Cater, said, start your own business. You can do the clin checks, you can remote monitor the patients, and you're a way overqualified assistant. So you need to make room for yourself. So that's exactly what I did. And I opened up Virtual Liner Support Professional and became a digital assistant for doctors.
I love that. And entrepreneurship just in general is that's like my love language. I love talking to
Mhm.
anybody who is moving in that direction. And of course, because I do a lot of startups, I get to talk a lot about that. But I love to hear that you saw a need in our industry
Yeah.
and it's always fun to see how people get into it, but not only did you master what you were doing but then saw a need and said, hey, I can do this. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on the show, is to really talk about what you saw and then how you've been able to do what you are doing. And when I work with a lot of my, especially my startup doctors, but even a lot of my existing ones, this whole role of digital technology in our orthodontic practices, I think is so important, but it is the future. It's the present and it's the future of our industry. And I'm just wondering if you can speak to that, especially because you have made that your business, but also if you can just talk to what you have seen, that evolution even in practices.
Absolutely. I think back to COVID is when it all started, right? But and we like to thank COVID for remote monitoring, but that's not the case. That's where doctors started to onboard it. But in reality, they were just a little bit behind. We were one of the first practices in the US to launch what they called dental monitoring at the time.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
prior to COVID, over a year, we were already seeing hundreds of patients remotely. We would get
Mhm,
them all their aligners, they would check in, take scans weekly, and we would track it that way.
mhm.
And so when it comes to the evolution of this, it all started right there. And then COVID said, okay, then Invisalign launches their virtual care. Then we have Grin. We have all these little platforms all around there. But what was missing was someone to run them and someone to say
Yes.
train them. Everyone just went rogue, Jill. They just said, here's the thing. We're freaking out. We have these patients. We have to see them and this and that. And we had no kind of execution. Lucky for me, I was already doing it. We were already doing
Mhm.
it. And so doctors would go through Dr. Galante, say, hey, we need someone to talk us through this. Or so she would always just here's my person that does that. Go ahead and talk to them. And then staging after that, Jill, was the benefits that came from it. We're reducing refinements. If you want to monitor your bracket patients, go ahead. You're catching the broken brackets, keeping the wire in there until it's passive. We are lowering treatment times.
Yes.
Being proactive versus reactive. And at the end of the day, we're just seeing patient compliance increase. If we have happier patients and they don't have to come to the office as much, we can save the doctor's time, save the chair time, save everyone's time. So that was the ultimate goal of bringing this digital onboarding behind it.
Yeah. When I have been in this industry for quite a while, a little over 30 years now. And as I have watched this digital role evolve in our orthodontic practices, I think back to when the lab technician of the past, the 1990 lab technician role where we were working with
Yes.
acrylics and doing all of these things. And then that went totally out of our industry for quite a while. And now I see that back in again, but it's all in this very digital role. And I can tell you, even when we're doing and designing startup practices, we're primarily now, any new orthodontic practice is being designed with a dry lab in mind versus a wet lab.
I love
And
that.
with that digital vision in mind, in whatever that scope looks like. But I think you could even say that is and could be a space now where a digital assistant is working and handling a lot of, if there is remote monitoring involved, if there is some of those components, it just gives them a place to be also as they're going through it. And so I'm wondering if you can give us some advice, because I think that there's never going to be one exact way to do this. But if we've got a listener out there that's saying, I really want to be able to take a team member of mine. I have got to get this. Like, I thought digital was going to make my life easier. And instead, I don't have any weekends and I don't have any nights anymore. And I just feel like I'm moving in the other direction. Could you give some advice on that for docs and maybe
Yeah.
some steps and what they should be thinking about in maybe implementing even that role into their practice?
Absolutely. And we'll start with saying it is an investment. It's not something you can just snap your fingers and it's there. I think the practices that do have the digital assistants where they're like myself, I do the clin checks and I do the virtual care. They have people like that, but do they have a strong understanding of tooth movements? They need to have a good clinical background per se.
Mm-hmm.
So they have this
Mm-hmm.
like a digital clinical
Mm-hmm.
assistant per se. So you need to develop someone that understands these tooth movements, that has a strong level of OCD to the highest power, that doesn't want anything falling between cracks, because as we know, doctors, that is
Yes.
what every dentist has in common right there.
Yes.
Very meticulous. So finding someone that you trust is a huge deal. And then you're going to have to take that time to teach them what you want, because they need to be able to think like a doctor. And that is the most important part to all this, is knowing how to understand and think like you. Because ultimately, we're looking to free up the time of the orthodontist, because they all have one thing in common: they're tired. The new ones can be fun and easy to work with because they're ambitious. But once you're past like 35, you're like done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need help. I'm drowning in clin checks. Oh, I need to call this patient. I need to call this dentist. So anything you need to call and talk to a dentist, it's like your PA or NP next to your side.
Yes.
But you have
Yes.
to pay them,
Yep.
educate them, and pay them, and really give them some kind of incentive where you're going to excite them and you're going to motivate them.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I'm gonna see if you can break this down, because when I think about this, time is the thing that nobody has, right? And if doctors are thinking about having a digital assistant or bringing this role into their practice, I think sometimes just the thought of, oh my gosh, I have to train them. Yes, that's the hard work that we have to do. Sometimes you have to step backwards to go forwards. But I'm curious, did you go through some courses? I know Donna happened to have been in Invisalign, and this can be done with any of the aligner systems out there. But How do you advise doctors, especially if time is the thing that they don't have how do they get their mini-me's thinking like them? Do you have some suggestions
Yeah,
on that?
absolutely. And of course, that whole time thing is, oh man, I have to invest this time. And that's where, hey, that is like my mission statement right there. Give it to me. This is why you hired me, because I can do all these things. Tell
Like,
me your preferences and you'll respect me enough to let me do it. But so how it starts is an Invisalign per se. Let's start with the ClinChecks. Those are usually taking up the doctor's time the most. Before you're
mm,
going to do remote monitoring, you're probably going to have them do the ClinChecks.
yeah.
Save the time there. And when it comes to that, there's so many courses on Invisalign or Spark or all those companies have lots of courses and training to be had. There's YouTube videos. You have to invest there. So in some way, shape, or form, start at square one. I recommend Invisalign. It's much easier if they're an Invisalign provider just because they have so many resources.
Mhm.
Go
Mhm.
through all of the classes. Under the education, you can be lost there for days and months. So I know Donna had set me there and this is all my information. Anything you ever need, just go through here, go through everything top to bottom.
Yeah.
And that really helped me the most. And on top of that, then it was like, okay, I had her. So it's really hard to say to a doctor that, oh, look, this person can be trainable. You can easily train them and have the time. I spent 4 years next to her.
Mm.
So it was like one of those things. And then aside from that, some doctors say I'm either going to hire Craig's services or I'm going to enroll in the training program with Craig and send one of my assistants over to Craig. Maybe they have 6 to 8 weeks, 2, 3 hours a week, 1 hour. It's a customized plan, and they are going to work with Craig. I'm going to pay X amount of money. Do I want to spend the time teaching them, or do I want to spend the money teaching them?
Yeah.
Either way, you're going to have to invest
Yeah. Yep.
people
Yeah,
to
for
work.
sure. So do you think that there's a level? I always think of things and first we have to crawl, then we have to then we walk. And
Yeah,
when you're thinking about this, do you suggest doctors taking steps? So maybe it's you guys are going through the course together and then maybe the doc is saying, "Okay, I want you to do my virtual workups with these parameters maybe in
yeah,
mind." And then the doc comes in and checks and okay, we're really good at that. And then now we're going to add a little bit more on and a little bit more on until maybe there's just a component of the doctor's confirming everything looks good
yeah.
and hitting the send. Do you suggest steps like that as assistants are working their way up into this?
Absolutely. I think the first thing is getting someone that's, like I say, that very
Yes.
organized and has your eye and you trust them. You need to
Hmm.
find someone you trust first, whether that's a clinical assistant, and then just start teaching them about chair side or whatever. Hey, this is buccal crown tip. This is a lingual root tip. Start teaching them those things. Little things like what you want to look for, like whether that do you want to intrude this tooth? Do you want to extrude? Do you want to rotate? And start quizzing them on the patients. This does not happen overnight. It doesn't have to be, and you don't want it to be in reality.
Yes.
I said, so start there. And then it's like you said, after that, let's maybe then go dive into some Invisalign courses. Or depending on their understanding, sit in a ClinCheck, sit right next to each other, share a screen, and just work it up. All your little ins and outs, because they have the most tiny eye down to the grid line of where
Yes.
they want the canines, the laterals, get all those laid out. And then the way I do it, I have a template. Before I were to train someone, I would send this over to the doctor and say, you just fill this out and I got the rest for
Hmm.
me. But sit there and spend the hours. And it can take hours when I say to sit
Yeah.
there with a person, but you can't just do 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there. You have to say, all right, I'm going to sit here for 1 hour. I'm going to sit here for another hour, because when you're learning bits and pieces, they're going to forget. We have to keep pushing this
Yes.
down. And then from there, they do one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't say a word. Don't make any facial expressions. Let them be creative, because you might think that theirs actually looks better.
Yeah.
And then lastly, the whole goal here is just to keep feedback coming. And yes, no, I don't like this. We want someone that's open to feedback. And my goal is to make 1 or 2 changes and improve.
Mm.
Ideally, 1 out of 4 of my ClinChecks that I set up to the doctor's preferences, I want them to just hit approve. Anything else, I don't want them to hitting more than 1 or 2 times. If they do, they're probably not communicating what they really need with me.
Yeah. And let's talk about that. I think that's a great segue. So if it's a doc and they're just saying, gosh, I just don't know that I want to train somebody in my practice, and I am going to use somebody like yourself, or
Yeah.
I know there's a few other companies out there. Let's talk about how should that work? Because to me, it's like communicating what you want your office vision. Nobody can read your mind.
Right. Right.
And you have to be, I would think, continually communicating. So can you talk to that and maybe some tips on if doctors were to use an outside company to do this, some of the best practices for that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you were looking to hire someone that has a training program that's developed that, or has just a really good digital coordinator that can do these things, you're going to want, there's still going to have to be a certain level of communication. And the things that you need to do is see if it's a good fit. The doctor is going to have to definitely get on the phone with the person, throw some lingo around and say, hey, you think you can do this? This is my thing. Because there's some doctors that have essays and pages of preferences. And I just politely say, hey, I don't think this is a good fit for me. If you're open to changing some of these things and simplifying the process, that's great. But there has to be some kind of way to even think, are they coachable? And then beyond that is, am I coachable? I always ask the question at the end of my call, are you confident that you can teach me what you want?
Oh, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, yeah. So, as you have been doing this for a while now, I think we can both agree technology is definitely changing practices. Do you have advice on for team members, for doctors, in how to embrace the technology that's coming at us and not getting overwhelmed by it?
Oh, yeah. This kind of takes me back to that culture episode that we did.
I know it.
Yeah, it starts with the culture of the practice. I would say you need to go ahead and find where your bottlenecks are. And those are going to be the people that are nagging, the people that are resistant to change, and which very well could be the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I would say is always show them how it's going to benefit them and go in optimistic, go in excited, and don't try to do everything at once. Let's work our way around the pie. This pie is good for months, so just eat slowly. Okay. And then beyond that, I would say what happens more than anything is I call it the group thinking. The group thinking, one person doesn't like it. Oh, so Pamela doesn't like this, and now everyone hates it. Stop.
Yes.
We have to, before we can develop changes like this, we have to stop engaging with the mindset of how this is going to bother us or how bad this is going to be, and think, how is this going to positively impact us as a practice? That's where it starts. I think it's all motivating behind there.
Yeah, mindset. I
Yeah.
think that is it. And I think you just keyed on something so importantly. It's so easy to be swayed by one person or one person's perspective in the practice. And then I think we can easily be like, oh, let's just scrap it. It's going to be too hard on my team, so I'm just not going to do it. Versus, I would challenge anybody who has had to go through change or
Yeah.
who has had to persevere. When you get to the other side and you look back and you go, oh, that was tough, that was hard, that didn't feel good while we were in it. But most of the time when you get to the other side and you're like, it is so much better here.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that what I would encourage my listeners that are listening is, if you have been thinking about, maybe you have been one of those slower adapters, which I think is totally fine. We all do things differently. But if you're, really starting to think, okay, I think I do really want to embrace the digital component of my practice. And what does that look like? It could be from some type of remote monitoring to starting to take away you having to be hands-on with every single one of your aligner cases. Just know that it's going to be hard and it's going to make your team uncomfortable. It's going to make you
Yeah.
uncomfortable. Craig, I think you would echo this. If you will just stick with it and don't try and change it overnight, have a path to success. When you get to the other side, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, why didn't we do this sooner?
Yes. Yes. I think the biggest thing to look out for there is The doctor is so important. People respect the doctor. So the doctor has to show up during this change. I see a lot of doctors out there that think, oh, their office manager can do it all. I have a manager, I have a director of operations. They're going to do this. No, there's one person that they want to respect more than anyone. And the doctor, they want to spend time with the doctor. Everyone loves to eat lunch with the doctor. And I was so spoiled coming from Cater and Galantes because they were very hands-on. They were hands-on, latest, greatest, everything. If something was changing or new, we were just used to that change environment. So I think if you get them used to that change environment, that's the recipe for success for anything, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's great. That's great. So if you had some advice for docs out there, whether they're a newer practice that's doing this or maybe existing, and let's talk about it if they were going to maybe promote somebody from within
Yeah,
into this position versus outsourcing. Could you
yeah,
give us some advice on the two sides of that?
absolutely. So if you are promoting within, chances are you probably already have someone that understands that tooth knowledge. If you have someone
Hmm.
in mind, you have someone that understands, and you're right there. You need to communicate. You see them, what, 3, 4 days a week. They're
Yes.
right there. They have access to the patient's charts. They have the access to you. They have access to the phone lines. They have all the access. But here's the downfall of that too. Someone calls in that day. Who's going to be the first one going to the chair? That
Yes.
person. Who's paying the employee taxes on that person? You are.
Yes. Yep.
You're giving them vacation time. If they quit, your turnover, you're investing again in the training, all those things, that just rolls over. So while there's great things happening, you and I both know, sometimes pulling in a consultant from the outside is a
Yep.
much better avenue. It's not the stress. Yeah, you're going to pay a little more. Yeah, you're going to
Hmm.
pay a little more, most definitely. But remember, you're paying for your time and you're paying for lower stress. So if you think that
Hmm.
turnover is an issue in your practice or you're not competent to train someone, a lot of orthodontists, they can't train people. They have no idea how to externalize any kind of training formats. And
Yeah.
so if you think that's going to be an option for you, find someone outside. But if you're good at teaching and you have an all-star employee and you're going to free up the space and give them the time and the hours to do that, develop
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah, that's great. And when I think about this, because so many times with a lot of my startups, with a lot of my existings as well, we really are evaluating employees that are in our practice and third party companies that can help us. And I personally believe that our industry, we are moving towards very refined orthodontic practices where we have key people in our practices and we are trusting to outsource
Yeah.
some of these roles, and I think you're really hitting on it, even from just what is your stress tolerance going to be like. And I think we really saw this evolution when I think it started in the financial realm when we started outsourcing our financial coordinator and saw that, oh gosh, this can be done. Again, we are just evolving in our orthodontic practices and thinking about, okay, not only are we evolving in the digital space that we're in, but I think it's very freeing to think I don't necessarily, like you were saying, I don't necessarily have to have a physical body in my
Yeah.
practice. I can still have accountability. I can still measure that. I think anytime we have any third party companies or third party roles, we still have to
Yeah.
manage that role. You can't just put it on autopilot. That's
Right.
never going to
Right.
that's never going to get you the results that you want. But I think it's very freeing if we can really think about, all right, if I could outsource like the role we're talking about, the digital role, okay, what does that free me up for? And then if I can outsource this or that or whatever, again, I just think that's where our industry
Right.
is going.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about your company. I'd love to I know you touched
Yeah.
on it just a little bit, but if somebody were saying, actually, really, maybe that makes more sense. I've been toying with this and I've thought all along I have to hire. Can you talk about how would somebody move if they wanted a company like yours? Or
Yeah.
how do they move in that direction?
Absolutely. And I always say that I'm a very transparent person. I'm very upfront about pricing, structures, raising the prices, and what it's going to be like at the beginning. So I would say the first thing, if they were to pick my company, it starts with a free discovery call.
Mm-hmm.
You can contact me by texting the number 530-785-6562 or send me an email at virtual.orthodontics@gmail.com or LinkedIn, of course. But from there, we just got to talk. It needs to be a good fit. For me to have a successful business, you have to be a good fit for me, and I have to be a
Mm-hmm.
good fit for you. And I'm comfortable saying, hey, that is not doable. That's not going to work for me, or this will work. And just build that trust first. And then from on there, I make it pretty easy. We're not going to have a lot of things where we get on a Zoom call and talk unless you're into that. I develop your customized approach by going through your preferences, you make an account, and then I will send you a digital form that asks you direct questions. So just spend 30 minutes going through answering these weird, they're like, why does he want to know that? Trust me, I just want to know that. Okay. I just want to know that. I always say, as long as you're not, and don't forget the last question, anything else that I should know, that's your free for all. Tell me. As long as it's not soccer and golf, we will talk about it. I can't. I don't know what is. My boyfriend is playing soccer right now, and they're terrible. They're bad. It's for the dental school, too. Yeah, he's a third-year dental student at Detroit Mercy, and they're terrible.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I was like, I can't watch.
Unless we're watching Ted Lasso, we're not doing it.
I'm like sitting on the sidelines, like trying to be the supportive partner. And I'm like wanting to be on TikTok or LinkedIn. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to get hit with a ball. Like,
Eyes up, eyes on the ball. That's awesome. So they would contact you, just making sure that it's a good fit. And then I'm questioning if a doctor's thinking, okay, maybe I will reach out to Craig, or what if it's a brand new doctor that's just getting started? And they're like, well, I don't even know if I could fill out his questionnaire because I'm still learning myself. How does that
my
look?
favorite. So that actually goes into the different category as I'm training. I'm now your ClinCheck coach per se. I'm going to be coaching you through this. I have a lot of new doctors usually. Sometimes they only need 2 or 3 months with me, but I help them set up the treatment plans, take on comprehensive cases. I'm telling you, I'm the little orthodontist that didn't have to go through hundreds of thousands of dollars and go to grade 23. I know enough to be really dangerous with these ClinChecks. So I have a lot of people that come on there, and I usually do get a wait list. Like right now, I do have a small wait list, and then I try within 2 months to get you off the wait list and get actively working and going from there. But I would say very often we have new doctors that reach out to me. They're just like, hey, you have the time. I know all these things and what all these things mean. Maybe together we can put our brains in it. I'm more than happy, and I love to see them have success.
Yes, that's wonderful. And as we come to the end here, I want you to talk about your podcast too. In the event that I know I've got a lot of docs that are like, Joe, I am always looking for a new podcast. Let's
Yeah.
just talk about that and what you're doing in your space over there.
Yeah, absolutely. Not Your Orthodontist. It's a monthly episode thing because I'm all about balance, and I was more focused on content per se and having really valuable people on there or me talking. It's about Invisalign, culture, and growth, anything in between. The only thing we don't talk about there is soccer, golf, and braces. Okay. We're not talking about braces on there. I love aligners, but it's called Not Your Orthodontist. It's available Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon. It's available all over the place. And it's no summer. So it's like October through May, one episode. And it is a place for more than doctors. So it's for your assistants, your treatment coordinators. There's great opportunities for podcast doctors. There's enough of them. So send your other people over and listen to that one.
Yeah, I love it. Craig, this has been awesome
Yes.
having you on Hey Docs. And I am sure you just got some of our docs pretty excited to know that it isn't as daunting as it may seem moving into that digital space. And if they want to do it themselves, you're there to help. And if they want to have you help them do it, you're there to help as well. And I think
Absolutely.
we all just need to know that we've got resources out there. And I know, knowing you, you're very approachable, very easy. And that's one of the things that I love about you is I know that any doc who's going to call you is going to just at minimum have a new friend. But
Yeah.
secondarily, they're going to get some just really good direction and be able to just bounce some thoughts and ideas and get a direction for how they want to move.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, I always say if the virtual side of your practice is not working for you, it's working against you. So there's a fine line in there. And I'm not at a point where I charge for just an hour session of Zoom and talking. Even if you don't want my services, I'm happy to share anything I have, because luckily, thanks to Galante and Paul Cater, they shared with me, and I'm just going to be the gift that keeps on giving that.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So I don't know if you know this, but on my shows, I always love to finish it up with a little speed round. Are you ready for the speed round challenge?
Yes, I am. What was I listening to? Was it yesterday? I was listening to the one with, Dino what?
Yes, yes.
I called him Dino forever. I still want to say Dino.
That's awesome. Yes, Dino will laugh about that one for sure.
Orthodontic Partners, one of my clients, they had him over for this culture thing. And
yes.
It was great, all that dancing.
He is good. Yeah, anytime you get a chance to see him in person, it's pretty amazing. All right, yes. Here we go. Describe your style. One word.
I'm going to 2 words. Go getter.
Oh, I like it.
Go getter. I put the hyphen in there.
Yeah. Hey, there you go. What are you listening to or watching right now?
Love is Blind.
Oh,
Love is Blind.
That's a good one.
Drama. I'm so over it.
Yeah, yep. All right. What do you do just for you?
I work out when I teach fitness on the side for fun. Yes.
Nice. I love it. I might need to take you up in some personal coaching there.
If you're not in a body pump class of mine, it's not happening. No.
And how about hidden talent?
I have a very high level of emotional intelligence.
I like that. Okay, and then final one. Big, hairy, audacious goal.
I would love to speak at the Invisalign Summit one day.
Oh, that's a great one. I am sure you will be there at some point.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Definitely things going on behind the scenes, and I'm excited.
Now, I'll put up positive vibes for you.
Yeah, I saw your cup. It said pray over there, girls.
All right, there we go. We're going to pray for that. Yeah. Craig, this has been just amazing. Thanks so much. You're truly a blessing to our industry, and I know you are helping bring balance to a lot of doctors' lives out there. So thanks so much for being on Hey Docs, and I'm sure we'll do another one.
Yes, cheers to you, my friend. Take care.
Yep, see ya.
Bye.